What is up, everybody? Shwazy here, and in today's video we're going to discuss why the Land Rover Defender 110 is still one of the very best luxury off-road vehicles you can buy. Now, I reviewed a Land Rover Defender 130 about a year and a half ago, and I walked away incredibly impressed with the vehicle. The only real complaint I had was the extra about 13 inches of space behind that rear wheel because it looked a little bit awkward. But if you needed a functional third row, it really was one of the best options on the market. However, Land Rover sent me this. It's the 110, which is the standard wheelbase version. It's actually 110 inches. That's what the 110 stands for. And this is the best-selling version of the Land Rover Defender. It's proportionally a little bit better, and I'm excited to report that this vehicle is just as impressive as the 130. I've been driving this vehicle for a week now, and even though there's more competition than ever in this space, I'm talking the Lexus GX that's been recently updated, there's the Toyota Land Cruiser, even the Ineos Grenadier and the Rivian R1S are pretty close competitors to this vehicle. But despite all of that, I still think the Land Rover Defender 110 is one of the best luxury off-road vehicles you can buy without really breaking the bank. Now, obviously, this is not an affordable car. We'll talk about pricing here in just a minute. But when you compare it to some of the competition, this really isn't any more expensive, but at the same time, it has a little bit more charm. So let's kick things off in today's video talking everything you need to know about this Land Rover Defender and why this should be on your shopping list if you need a luxurious off-roader. All right, so a quick summary of the history of the model. So the Defender name traces its roots pretty much back to the 1940s. However, officially probably in the 1980s with the Land Rover 110, and then the Defender nameplate was first used in the 90s, and it went all the way through 2016 before being killed off and then brought back to life in 2020 as the Land Rover Defender that we see today. There's been very few updates over the last 4 years, really minor aesthetic things like the one I'm showing off today, but otherwise it's remained mostly the same, and honestly it didn't really need a facelift because this thing still looks pretty striking. It looks different than a lot of the other vehicles on the road today. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, you can get this in a variety of different wheelbases and lengths. You can get this with an optional third row, although I probably wouldn't recommend it because it's pretty tight back there. However, thankfully Land Rover offers the 130, and then there's of course the Land Rover Defender 90, which is the two-door version and a little bit more off-road capable because it is that shorter wheelbase. But let's start off with the design of this vehicle. So this particular car is in the Tasman blue color, and that is because this vehicle has the County Pack. It's a specific exterior appearance package which includes the wheels, the colors, and Tasman blue is one of 3 colors that you can get on the Defender in the County Pack. But starting off with the front end, you've got LED daytime running lights and LED headlights over here. They're kind of in this square shape, but you can immediately tell this is a Land Rover because the design language carries through on all their other models. I like the Defender badging over here at the top. It actually pops out of the hood. And then a small grille with Land Rover badging at the end. Now, moving downwards, you do have fog lights down here along with some brushed aluminum styling, and you've got parking sensors and another grille located down here as an air inlet. And then at the very bottom, you do have functional skid plates underneath to protect the vehicle when you're taking this thing off-road. But overall, the design language is very throwback but also modern. It's actually one of the things I loved about the Ford Bronco. I think the Bronco and the Defender accomplish this in some of the best ways, where it's a modern styling but it still has great retro throwback, including these plates over here. Now, these are just plastic plates on the post-2020 Defender. On the original Defender, these were made out of metal, and so you could actually stand on them to get onto the roof, but I do like that they still integrated that design language. But overall, the hood is pretty simple, but it's long and it's boxy, and that's one of the things I love about this vehicle. This looks like an off-roader, just taking a look at it from the exterior. Now, coming across the side of the vehicle, a couple things to point out here. First off is the wheel and tire selection. So this one being the County Pack, it kind of has this throwback steel looking wheel, although these aren't steelies, these are actually alloy wheels, but they look like they are. They're 20 inches and the tire dimensions are 255/60. These are Goodyear Wrangler all-terrain tires and they look really good. I like how that white matches the white roof, and that actually transitions perfectly to the fact that this is a two-tone color. So you've got the Tasman blue exterior with the white out roof. That is another signature feature of the County Pack, along with this decal located at the bottom which says County on it, and it's got this stripe that extends all the the way to the rear passenger door. I do like the different colors here. So not only do you have blue, you've got white, but you've also got this gloss black material all throughout the bottom of the vehicle and along the side view mirrors. You also have this little stripe that kind of connects the windshield to the side of the vehicle, and it just looks really nice. It looks very premium. Now, this is kind of a controversial section of every Land Rover Defender, and that is this panel that looks like it just blocks out a window, when in fact it actually doesn't block out any windows. When you open up the door, you can actually see there's not really any blockage or a window. It just kind of takes the place of the C-pillar, but it looks a little bit different from the outside, and that's one of the reasons why I love the Defender, is it's different from all other vehicles. This one also has the Alpine windows, so these are small little windows that are meant to be a throwback to old Land Rover Defenders. The Defender 110 had the same type of windows up front. They were functional. I believe they opened up as well. Here they don't open, but it does give you kind of that throwback feel to it. And then coming across the rear end, another signature feature of the County Pack is the contrast tailgate. So you have a different color for the tailgate as opposed to the rest of the vehicle. So this one being the Tasman blue, the color combo is blue and white. If you choose any other color of the County Pack, you're actually going to get a blue door in the back. So it's going to be a little bit of a contrast. And then while we're back here, I do want to talk about the design. So I personally love these tail lights. They're separated into two different housings, and you've also got a small little section over here on the left-hand side. You got Defender badging over here, and then a large glass window with a windshield wiper tucked behind there, and you've got your third brake light integrated into the top. This is, of course, a full-size spare tire because this is an off-roader, and a little bit more of that brushed aluminum styling located here in the back as well. I don't believe there's too much underbody protection near the rear, but you've got air ride suspension, which can adjust the height of this vehicle, and we'll show that off here later on in the video. Overall, the style is very boxy, very British, and very off-roady. I personally love it. What are your thoughts on the styling of the Defender 110? Let me know down in the comments below. Now, in terms of the exterior proportions here, from front to back without the spare tire, this thing's about 187 inches long, which is kind of similar to a lot of two-row crossovers. With that spare tire in the back, your length is about 197.5 inches long. So that's almost pushing three-row territory. And then obviously, if you pick the Defender 130, that's going to be over 200 inches long. So this isn't a small vehicle. For being a two-row crossover, it's actually pretty large on the inside. And we'll show off in the interior how that adds to the roominess in the second row, along with how spacious it feels in the middle seat. Now, in terms of the weight of this vehicle, it's not light. It's about 5,000 pounds. However, in terms of the amount of weight you can stack on the roof if you choose to take this vehicle overlanding, on this particular trim, it's about 220 pounds, which is pretty decent. You know, that's one full-size adult that can lay on top of the roof. Now, similar to the exterior, where you can get a variety of different lengths and seating configurations, the same goes for the powertrain. There's quite a few different options. You can get a turbocharged four-cylinder all the way to a supercharged V8, but the vehicle standing behind me has the P400 engine. It's a 3-liter inline-6 turbocharged engine that produces, you guessed it, just about 400 horsepower, 395 to be exact, and 406 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to an 8-speed ZF automatic transmission, and you get standard all-wheel drive, which is what you would expect for an off-roader. You also have a standard 2-speed transfer case with a 4-high and a 4-low range gear. Now, fuel economy on this is pretty okay. We're talking 17 in the city, 20 on the highway for a combined 18. But in terms of performance, I think this is the perfect engine for this vehicle. Obviously, the supercharged V8 is better, but if you want a little bit better fuel economy and still plenty of power, this thing pulls really well. 0 to 60 in about 5.8 seconds, but it actually feels quicker than that. And also, I should mention, this is a mild hybrid system, so you do have a little bit of assist from the electric motor. It primarily runs the start-stop system and some of the auxiliary components, but it does still help a little bit with acceleration. And for that reason, you have a pretty quick vehicle, and you don't have to break the bank with this particular engine. Now, in terms of towing, it's actually really impressive for a two-row crossover. We're talking a max towing capacity of 8,200 pounds, which is plenty to tow around that broken British sports cars of yours in the back. Alrighty, next up, let's jump on the inside and talk about the interior features and amenities. First up, I do want to show you the Land Rover key. It's the same one they've been using for the last couple years. You got Land Rover script on the back, lock, unlock. You got your button to turn on the headlights so you can find it at night. And then this button doesn't actually do anything because you don't have a power lift gate. So it'd be cool if they had a custom key for the Defender itself, but they chose to, save a little bit of money on that. Now, Now, this particular trim level is the Defender S, which is the base trim level. So some of the things I show off in today's video come standard, and other things are optional as packages on top of the Defender S trim level. Now, first off, jumping on the inside, let's talk about the styling here. You do have soft touch material all throughout the top over here. I do like this exposed door panel. So this is all this metal that matches the exterior paint color. This is that Tasman blue color. And then I do like these rivets over here as well. Kind of makes it feel a little bit more utilitarian, more rugged, definitely off-roady. Not very similar to other Range Rover products that are meant to be super premium. But as you can see here, you know, with this soft touch material, this is natural leather here. It still has that premium feel. It doesn't feel like a cheap vehicle. It just has some personality to it. You have your window switches over here, your memory seats. Now moving over here, you have an aluminum door handle, and this one comes with the 10-speaker Meridian sound system. It's a 400-watt output, and it sounds really good. I have no complaints with it. I believe there's higher trim levels as well that have more speakers in the vehicle. Nice storage compartment down here with a little cup holder. This, of course, hard-touch plastic material, but the door panel already has some personality to it. Now, talking about these seats, these are 12-way power adjustable. You also have 4-way lumbar support, and this is full-grain leather. They do have perforated leather over here, and then your headrest feels pretty nice. It's pretty soft, softer than some other vehicles I've tested. Now, these seats are heated, but they are not ventilated. Ventilated seats are an optional feature that my particular tester does not come with. And then jumping inside, let's talk about interior styling here. So if you take a look at the dash, it's very utilitarian. So it's very boxy, feels like a different product than other Land Rover or Range Rover products. You've got this little bar over here that extends all the way across the passenger side. It is soft padded with the same material that you found on the door panel. It does have little grooves here, so it kind of serves as a grab handle as well when you're taking it off-roading. I do like the Defender script over on the passenger side. It's embossed into this little compartment, and this is a little shelf here, so you can put various different items. You also have a USB port in there, so you can plug in some devices. And then this shelf carries over behind this infotainment screen. So you can actually reach through, and as you can see, my fingers extend all the way behind the screen. And then this steering wheel, let's talk about it. It is absolutely massive. This is probably the biggest steering wheel I've seen in any two-row crossover. It's the same one that I experienced in the Defender 130, and I thought it was just a huge steering wheel. It feels very commanding when you're behind the wheel of this thing. And I like the textures and materials here. So you have this kind of white plastic material, but it matches with the interior. It doesn't feel cheap. You know, you have that same white plastic over here, same over here where you have a little storage compartment with a shelf, and then that same white plastic is where you'd find the Defender script over there. So it's a kind of a textured material. This is, of course, a leather wrapped steering wheel. It is heated. That is standard on all trim levels. And then this has a little plastic cover with Defender badging. You don't actually see very many Land Rover badges on the inside. Everything says Defender. And then shutting the door, let's talk about how it sounds. Sounds pretty solid. Not as solid as like a Wrangler, but I do like the lock and unlock sound. Take a listen. Sounds pretty good. Now, all Defenders have this 12.3 all-digital instrument gauge cluster display, and turning this vehicle on with the push-to-start button, you'll see it's pretty customizable. So you have this primary screen where you can adjust different things. So by pushing on this button in the center, you can cycle through a different info panel. So you have your full screen navigation, or I should say partial navigation, your media. You can look at your trip summary, etc., etc. And then you can also change the display layout. So if you click this button, you will change it to one dial. Makes it look a little bit more, I don't know, futuristic or modern. And then you can obviously adjust what happens on the left and the right hand side. You can do a full screen navigation, which is a nice feature. Although when you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto activated, it's not going to share it over here on the screen, but that's okay. I mean, it's still nice that it has that full screen navigation. You can do just your media, and you can do a driver's assistance where it shows kind of what's going on around the vehicle. I personally like this layout. It's more traditional, but it's a nice screen. A lot of other manufacturers have all digital displays, but they don't really allow you to customize it. So I think the customization here is better than some of the competition. And then showing off these buttons, as you can see, when I click the button over here, it changes what this looks like. So depending on what menu you're in, obviously it's going to adjust what the buttons look like. So once I click that, it changes back to your phone, your favorites button, your Seek track, you got your voice activation. This button is to regulate how sensitive your driver's assistance features are. So you can do high, low, custom. And below that is a little roller knob for your volume controls. On the right hand side is primarily your cruise control functionality. So you can set your cruise control, your lane keep assist, assist. You can cancel it, obviously set the distance. You can change your speed limit or set a speed limiter. And then this is your heated steering wheel functionality. One complaint I do have about the safety features here is you have lane departure warning, but you don't have any type of lane centering. So this vehicle won't actually keep you centered in the lane. It'll just kind of nudge you back. That is, I think, a miss on Land Rover's part because a lot of the competition come with that. Now, in terms of what's going on over here, this is your headlight stock and your headlight controls along with your turn signal. On the right-hand side is your windshield wiper stock. You do have rain-sensing windshield wipers here. And then moving up above you, this is kind of a rubberized material. So it is a softer touch, but it's a little bit more rugged. It's not like this type of material over here. You got your air vents, and then over on the passenger side, as you can see, you have an extension of your Meridian sound system on the door. Now, my particular vehicle comes with the cold climate pack, which includes the heated windshield. You also have heated washer jets, so the washer jets are actually integrated into the windshield wiper as well, and you've got headlight washers to clear off the snow. Now, jumping over to the center unit, there's two options that you can get as of 2024, although I believe as of 2025, there's only one option, and it's the larger screen. This one in particular is a 10-inch touchscreen, and it's got wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. However, in the Defender 130 I reviewed last year, it had the larger curved 11.4-inch screen. So it actually started at the same point, but then it went a little bit higher. It ended right above over here. And I honestly think that was the better size for this vehicle. The 10 inches almost looks like an 8-inch, and it feels a little bit small in this vehicle, but I think that's the reason why the 2025 model year may not come with this 10-inch screen. Now, in regards to software here, I think it's awesome. You have this kind of main screen widget menu where you can go through a variety of different features. You can also hit this menu button where you can open up your entire selection of different menu items. Obviously, the Android Auto, the Apple CarPlay. I do like how you can immediately look at your vehicle dimensions. So let's say, you know, you're driving into a parking lot and you can't remember how tall your vehicle is. Depending on what suspension height you're in, it will adjust what the height is showing on the screen. So that way you know if you can actually get into a certain parking lot. And then I do like how it'll show you your exact angle of your slope. So if you're taking this off-roading, you got this off-road screen where it will show you whether you have your rear locker or your center locker activated. Also wade sensing, so this is your off-road pages where it will show you exactly how much you can water wade or water fording capability. At its max height, I believe you can go over or just about 3 feet in water, which is pretty impressive. That's better than some of the competition. There's also a lot of different programs here where you can configure different terrains, and then it also shows you what your elevation is where you're driving. Now, another couple cool features here that my particular vehicle comes with, because it has the air ionizer package, this will purify the air quality going on around you. So as you can see, we're actually sitting in an area that has pretty bad air quality. You can't even see the mountains because there's fires going on around us. And as you can see here, the exterior air quality is pretty bad. Earlier today, it was showing hazardous, but the interior was purified and clean, so it was somewhere in the yellow-orange section. So because I've had the door open, obviously it's not showing as good, but it's cool that it has this air ionization feature, but that is an optional package. Now, you can control your climate for the front and the rear here as well. And then a couple other items to show off. You do have a quick access button for your 360-degree camera, and it's really nice. It gives you that 3D view, and you can cycle through various different angles. Now, you can't actually spin it yourself, but you can kind of swipe through the different angles. So it's pretty similar to other vehicles. Another cool feature is as you put it into drive, if you go into your off-road settings, you can actually see what's going on underneath the vehicle. So by pushing this button, and as you start driving forward, obviously it uses software to kind of show you what's going on underneath. That's a useful feature, kind of a transparent hood to use when you're taking this thing off-roading, because sometimes you can't really tell what rocks are going on underneath you, and this is a very useful feature without having to slap a camera underneath the vehicle that could easily get damaged. Now, another cool feature here is the low traction launch. This is designed for a situation where perhaps you're stuck in mud or snow and you really just need a little bit more torque to get you out of it. Well, that's what this menu is designed for. You can start low traction launch, and it's intended to give you a little bit more torque to get you out of a sticky situation. And I've heard that it works pretty well from users on different forums. Now, the last thing I want to point out here is in your settings menu, you can actually adjust your home screen layout. So you can edit what it looks like. That way your widgets are customized to exactly what you want. You can simply drag and drop it and add whatever widgets you want. So that adds another level of customization to the interior of this UI. And I think Land Rover's done a great job at that. The only complaint I have here is just the size. I wish it was a little bit bigger. Now, moving down from the screen, I do want to point out this is more soft touch leather material, makes the interior feel a little bit more more premium. You got your start-stop button over here. Your gear selector is located front and center. It does sometimes get in the way with reaching some of the bottom corners, but it's not too bad. And then let's talk about the control stack over here of your various buttons. So first off, left to right, you've got your downhill cruise control for off-roading. You can turn off your auto start-stop. This is how you turn on your front and rear heated windshield. You can control where the airflow is going. Now over here on the left hand side are your buttons to control your air ride suspension. That's an optional feature that came on this particular vehicle. It's about a $1,600 option. And I think it's worth it if you plan on going off-roading. It works really quick. So you push these buttons to raise the height and it'll tell you exactly what the height is over here on the gauge cluster. And then it will adjust what your ride height is on the infotainment screen. Now moving towards the center, these buttons and roller knobs serve a variety of different functions. 3 different functions to be exact. First off, of course, you can adjust the climate control on the left and the right hand side. You do have dual zone climate. Secondly, as you can see, the fan speed shot up. This also controls your fan speed. So you simply push on this button and that way this button no longer controls the dual zone climate, but it will control the fan speed. And then if you push on this button, that's how you can activate your heated seats, 3 different levels. This one, if it did have ventilated seats, you would simply roll it counterclockwise. That's how you'd activate that. Now, this button up here is how you go through your various different drive modes. So you have eco, you have comfort, you've also got grass gravel, you've got mud ruts, and obviously when you do that, this vehicle will automatically start adjusting the air ride suspension and your throttle response. You've also got sand mode, rock crawl, waiting, and then configurable. So majority of these are just off-road settings. We're actually going to leave it in comfort mode. That's the best for driving around town, but very configurable drive modes. This is how you turn off your traction control. Your 4 low is activated by this button, automatic climate control, and that's your air recirculation. You also have a physical volume knob over here. Now, some people complain that it's on the passenger side, but that's really just because you can control the volume using the steering wheel over here, so the passenger can easily access this one over there. And then moving down below that, it's a 2-tier compartment in the center. So you've got this first level where you've got 2 USB ports and a cigarette style power outlet. And then since this one is the County Pack, it has this robust tech interior. It's kind of an interesting textured faux leather material. It's different than the Defender 130 I reviewed where this was a wood veneer, but I do like how this has more of those Torx head bolts. Just makes it look a little bit more rugged. Now down here you've got a large storage compartment and a second one located back here so you can throw your purse or your wallet, and that way it's not just rolling around. You've got 2 cup holders up here, a wireless charging pad that works really well, but you kind of have to have it centered for it to work. And then this is a soft touch arm console with a pretty large compartment. And I know you can get a refrigerator instead of this compartment, so that's another optional feature for this vehicle. Mine also comes with the optional rear view camera mirror. Really nice option, especially if you have the Defender 130, because that 3rd row will kind of get in the way. But even now, that spare tire really obstructs your view. So having this digital rear view camera mirror is probably a must. Up here, you've got touch sensitive lighting for the interior. You've also got a very large panoramic sunroof, and it opens up for the first and the second row, and then it does actually open as well. So this isn't a fixed glass roof. My only complaint is when it is open, it's really not that large. Even though your bar is located so far back, this is the farthest that this roof will open. So it's, you know, not opening much more than that. I wish it kind of opened all the way up back. That way it'd make it feel a little bit more like a soft top Bronco or something like that. Make it feel a little bit more airy on the inside. But unfortunately, you know, it just opens up a little bit. But either way, it is nice to have a opening panoramic sunroof. Now, the last thing to point out about the front row before we jump into the second row is the shape of these side view mirrors. I think it looks really cool. They're kind of rectangular in shape, and it makes it feel like it has a little bit more character than just your standard side view mirrors. Now, jumping into the second row of the Defender, it still has the same personality as the first row. Door panel is almost an exact replica, and you've got a small cup holder slot back here, along with an extension of your Meridian sound system. Now, talking about these seats, my particular vehicle comes with the optional second row heated seats. That's not standard, but it is nice to have. And then you've got a center arm console over here with 2 cup holders, but no storage capacity. However, in terms of the width of this vehicle, it's got plenty of space. So you could easily fit a person in the middle seat, easily packing in 5 people inside of this vehicle. And then also in terms of legroom, since this is a bit of a larger 2-row crossover, you got plenty of space back here. We're talking 39.1 inches behind the first row. And then me sitting in the middle, I could easily sit back here. And then if I want to, I could put my legs in on the side, and there's plenty of space. person could easily sit over here on the left and the right hand side. Now, talking about what's going on here, you do have air vents, of course, that's expected for a luxury vehicle. And then this one also has the optional 3-zone climate control, and the buttons work the same way as the first row. So of course you can click on this. That's how you adjust the heated seats for the second row. And then you have your auto climate control along with your fan speed over here in the center. And then you can adjust where the airflow is going as well. Now down here at the bottom, you got 2 USB ports for both the driver and the passenger side, and a little storage compartment down here to put some different items. Now sitting back here, because it's a pretty boxy SUV, I have plenty of space above my head. I'm 5'9", and then I do like these Alpine windows. If I look up, I can directly see into the stars, although it is a bit of a small window. It's kind of pointless, but it's a nice added feature. With the panel open and this, you get a lot of bright light inside of the interior. Kind of helps offset this dark ebony colored interior for this particular Land Rover. Now, jumping into the trunk, first off, I like the way this thing sounds. Sounds very utilitarian, but opening this up, there's a little storage compartment in here where you can actually hide your little caution triangle. So if you get stuck on the side of the road, you can simply pop that out. You've got Defender written in script over here. It would be nice if this window would open up, but it doesn't. Talking about this trunk area, it's pretty large. Again, this one being a bit of a larger 2-row crossover. Plenty of space back here. You can get an optional 3rd row, although I would highly recommend getting the Defender 130. And then over here on the side, you've got a household power outlet, which is a very useful feature. Fuse box over here. You got some little pockets on the left and the right hand side. They feel a little bit flimsy, but it is nice that they have some type of storage. Underneath this rubber floor mat, you can pop this open. Takes a little bit of effort, but this will open up a little bit of a storage compartment down there where you can store like your owner's manual, and then your jack is located down there as well. And then this vehicle having the air ride suspension, you have buttons back here to automatically raise and lower to make it easier to load items into the trunk. So you can simply push this button, the suspension will begin lowering. You can push that button again, it'll start raising up the suspension, and it works pretty quickly, very easily as well. So it helps to load some heavier items in the back. You also have little hooks over here for your groceries. And what I like about the rear end here is you can fold down each seat independent of one another. So I can fold that down and simply put a long ski, and then people can still sit on the left and the right hand side. Now, in terms of the cubic feet back here, it's about 34 cubic feet of space behind the second row. If you fold down the second row, it's about 78.8 cubic feet of space behind the first row. So not class leader by any means, but a decent amount of space back here. Now, as this vehicle is jacked up in its highest mode, let's talk about the off-road capability here, and it's pretty advanced. That's partially why I would recommend getting the air ride suspension. So in the max height setting on the air ride suspension, you have an approach angle of 37.5 degrees, a breakover angle of 27.8 degrees, and a departure angle of 40 degrees. And you can get anywhere between 8.5 to 11.5 inches of ground clearance with this air ride suspension. So again, if you're planning on taking this off-roading, it's definitely a necessary $1,600 to spend. Also, as I noted earlier, your max water fording capabilities is 35.4 inches. And then my particular vehicle comes with the optional advanced off-road capability package and the off-road pack that includes an electronic locking rear differential, as you guys may have seen on the screen. It also has domestic plug sockets in the rear end of the trunk. And then you've got off-road tires as well with these Goodyear Wrangler all-terrains. And then there's skid plates located underneath the car as well. So that's a nice optional feature, but you definitely have to pay a premium to get the most off-road capable Land Rover Defender. Alrighty, next up, let's get behind the wheel and see how it feels to drive behind the wheel of the Defender 110. All right, first thing we're gonna start with is a little bit of an acceleration. There's no sport mode here, so we're just simply gonna step on the gas. And it gets up to speed really quick. There is a little bit of a turbo lag when you're just going from 0 to 60. But earlier today, I was merging into traffic and there was very little turbo lag. It just immediately kicked on. And I think this is a perfect powertrain for this vehicle. I mean, nearly 400 horsepower is nothing to balk at. I mean, that's an impressive amount of power for a vehicle of this size. I mean, at the end of the day, it is just a 2-row crossover, albeit a pretty heavy one. Now, a couple things to point out as I'm sitting here. I've driven this for a couple hundred miles and I drove the Defender 130. And one thing you'll notice is this is a little bit larger than your typical two-row crossover. I mean, it's definitely wider. It's hard to reach the passenger side, and it just feels taller, feels bigger. Your riding position, you feel like you're above the road. You have a pretty large greenhouse all around you, and those are all things that help contribute to the feeling of security when you're driving behind the wheel of this thing. It makes you feel tough, and I like it. It's a cool feeling to have. Now, obviously, the size of this vehicle doesn't help with its off-road capability. If you want the most off-road capable, you pick the Defender 90. It's going to be the shorter wheelbase, the two-door, but it's still a wide car, and it's spacious. It's easy to fit a family of 4 or 5 and just drive around town, go on a road trip, you know, whatever have you. It's the perfect vehicle for that. Now, if you guys didn't know, I used to own a 2021 Ford Bronco, and I got to say the driving position and just how it feels behind the wheel is very similar to the Bronco, except this feels more luxurious, of course. It's not as loud on the outside. It's actually a pretty quiet cabin, despite the fact that you can see exposed metal over here on your door panel. It's pretty quiet, especially at highway speeds. I don't really notice it. And in terms of ride quality, it's a pretty compliant suspension. Now, it's not the softest of any two-row crossover, but it's probably the softest off-road vehicle I've driven in terms of its suspension. Now, the one thing is when you're going on a canyon road and you're kind of hitting the corners, this thing feels pretty wallowy. I mean, it definitely bounces around left and right. Even as you're accelerating, I mean, the suspension kind of moves forward, backwards. This definitely isn't a vehicle you're going to want to take on any high-speed canyon runs. This thing feels like at any moment it could flip over. Now, obviously it's not going to, but I'm curious how the supercharged V8 would feel, because this thing feels way too uncertain at higher speeds, but that's what you would expect from a tall off-roader. It's no different than my Ford Bronco, and the Jeep Wrangler is very similar as well. So from that standpoint, the suspension is similar to the competition, but from a ride quality standpoint and a sound quality standpoint, it is better than the competition. Now, in regards to the pricing here, it's where it gets a little bit interesting, and in typical British fashion, you can definitely add on a lot of features similar to other German cars. So the base price of a Defender 110 is just shy of $68,000. Now, this particular vehicle I'm sitting in today is the base trim level. It's the Defender S. However, because this has the cold weather package, the air ride suspension, the 3-zone climate control, rear heated seats, you know, the options keep adding up, and the County Pack, which on its own is about a $5,000 option between the 20-inch wheels, the exterior vinyl, the two-tone color options. You know, it's a hefty premium to get this type of aesthetic. When you add all of that combined, the particular MSRP of the vehicle I'm sitting in today is just shy of $83,000. That is a pretty expensive vehicle, but when you start comparing it to the competition, it's pretty similar. Speaking of the competition, what is the comp set here? Because back in 2020, when this vehicle came out, there really was no true competition to the Defender. I mean, you had the G-Wagon, which was way more expensive, or you had the Wrangler, which was way less expensive and definitely not as premium feeling. So at the time of its arrival, this car was kind of on its own in terms of a luxurious off-roader. Now, even though it's been 4 years, there has been some new competition, but it's not as hot as you would expect considering how popular this vehicle is. I would think that the newest entrants into the market are the Rivian R1S, even though that's not a true competitor to this because it's an electric powertrain, so not everybody's going to go for that. Plus, I would say Land Rover has a little bit more brand cachet than Rivian. Rivian's more of a startup, so you kind of want to be an early adopter if you're going to pick one of those, me being one of them. The other competition that just recently hit the market is the Toyota Land Cruiser, the 250 series. However, that one is a little bit down market. I mean, that one competes closer, I would say, with the Wrangler and the Bronco than it does with this one. So to me, the only true competitor to the Land Rover Defender after 4 years of being on the market is the newly restyled Lexus GX, the 2024 model year. I think finally that's the only one that can really compete against this head-to-head, but I would argue that this is still a better choice than the Lexus GX. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the new GX. I think it looks great inside and out. I think they finally updated a dinosaur that was in need of an update like 10 years ago. It's got really good looks, great off-road capability, but it doesn't have the same lineage that the Defender has. The Defender has that name that goes all the way back to the 90s, and the Defender itself, that off-road kind of upscale rugged vehicle, goes all the way back to the 1940s. And I would argue that this thing feels a little bit more special special. Every time I sat behind the Land Rover Defender, I feel like I'm driving something cool, something unique, something different. It feels British, it feels foreign, it feels like I should be wearing a tweed coat and speaking in a British accent. I mean, I feel cool in this thing, even though I can't explain why that is. And even after this thing being on the market for 4 years, I still stop and stare at this one when I see it driving down the road. And I have a feeling that even though the Lexus GX right now is a little bit hotter of a vehicle, 4 years from now, you're gonna see a GX everywhere on the road, and I have a feeling it's not gonna get as much attention as the Defender. But even with a market of 2 vehicles, being the GX and the Defender, there's still not that much competition for this vehicle. I mean, the BMW X5, Mercedes GLE, they compete price-wise, but they're not as off-road capable. They're also a little bit more luxurious on the inside. At the same time, the Bronco and the Wrangler, those aren't as luxurious. So this thing still kind of stands on its own, and I think that Land Rover is doing a great job with this vehicle. They kind of pioneered this more modern, luxurious off-roader, and a lot of other companies are starting to catch up. I mean, even the Hyundai Santa Fe I recently reviewed, you could tell they were starting to get some styling traits from this Defender. So to me, this thing is still an amazing vehicle. You're gonna enjoy sitting behind the wheel of this vehicle. And one of the things I think that makes a car very enticing is how special you feel behind the wheel. And every time I've driven one, I feel very special. I think Land Rover succeeded in making this truly a cool vehicle that you're not going to get tired of. The last thing to mention is reliability. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit more questionable than the Lexus, but I think overall these things have been pretty reliable, especially if you don't get the first model year. And then resale value is impressive. This is probably one of the only Land Rover or Range Rovers that holds its resale value really well. I mean, you still can't find a high mileage one for less than $45,000. So if you're an owner of one, you're probably going to benefit from the above average resale value of these vehicles. So to finish off this video, I have enjoyed my time with the Land Rover Defender. I get a smile every time I sit behind the wheel, but I'm curious to hear everybody else's thoughts. With this being a 4-year-old model at this point, do you think it's in need of a bigger refresh? Do you think it has enough cool features and styling to compete with the Lexus GX, the Highlander, the Rivian, even the Ineos Grenadier, which I don't think is a real direct competitor. It's a little bit more retro, but there's a lot more competition now and a lot more choices. So what are your thoughts on the Defender? Let me know down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed today's video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also check me out on all the social media at Shwazy_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay Shwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.